All right, Mr. Anthony Krutzkamp, thank you for being here today and welcome to the Creative Generations podcast. For our listeners out there that don't know a ton about you, you were a former principal dancer with the Cincinnati Ballet, also with the Kansas City Ballet. You were the head of the second company in Kansas City Ballet, and now you are the current artistic director and executive director of the Sacramento Ballet, which, in my opinion, is one of the best companies in this beautiful country of ours. So today, again, I just want to thank you for being with us today. I know you're a busy man. We're trying to have a series of episodes with artistic directors like yourself so we can get an insight into the ins and outs of your role, as well as how the hiring process works. And today we're going to delve into some questions from some young dancers. So if you don't mind, I thought we'd just get started with some questions and get rolling.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
All right. So the first few questions are just for you, pertaining to your role as an artistic director and executive director. Um, and this first one is, what was the transition like for you going from being a dancer to being an artistic director, or even for that matter, being the head of the Kansas City Ballet second company? And what were the more surprising aspects of that transition and taking this leadership role?
I was uniquely lucky that the executive and artistic director really took care of me in my transition. Both were actually inviting me to kind of meetings I had no reason to be there for, just so I could see what it was like to be an actual artistic director and executive director, which was amazing. I mean, sometimes they would say, "Hey, act like you're taking notes for me. I don't really need it, but I need you to hear what we're doing." Being in there
Yeah.
for negotiations that I didn't need to be there for. It really gave me an idea behind like what's happening, because at the same time, I just went back to business school, and was a way to take that practicum into reality and see actually how it's done. Coming here actually was rather hard. The companies are run uniquely differently. So I actually had a hard time transitioning into how this company works actually internally, and then through a good 7 years, changing it to a model and a system that works for me.
Cool. I mean, I guess that kind of segues into my next question, which is, what are some of the most challenging parts about your job as far as your relationship to the dancers, to the board, to the administrative staff? How do you navigate those wearing the hats that you do?
Yeah, we can start with the dancers. You have to be a little bit of a psychologist at all times, not in the way you interact with them when speaking with them, but say you have 30 people in the room and somebody's not really coming along and they're in a bad mood that day. They're just
Yeah.
in a horrible mood. It can be external. We don't know what it is. How do you get them to do what you need them to do? Right? How do you drag them out of there? Because during our time, right, it would be just leave your feelings at the door. We don't care. Get it done.
Yeah.
Uh, we went through that, so nobody else has to, right? But it's really and how you work with each person to get them to do what you need them to do. It's actually also one thing that I struggle with the dancers is, as a second company director, lead, or whatever you want to call it, you are so insanely close to your dancers because you're almost in a parental role. And their hopes and dreams are on your shoulders in a different way as an artistic director. There are laws, labor laws, and I cannot be their friend, which is a good and a bad thing, right? I want to be closer to the dancers, but there is a spot where I can't be, and I have to keep that space a little bit. There's a trust. There's a big trust that we need to have, but I can't be a friend. And I do struggle with that a little bit. Because I do think if you tap into the emotional side like you do in a second company, you get a lot out of a dancer and very quickly. I have to find different ways to get that done with a barrier, essentially. Um, and also, I struggle with casting sometimes because I know, as I said before, it's a different types of hopes and dreams. And I have to try to fulfill those sometimes, and sometimes I can't for a dancer. because maybe they don't fill that role, or I don't see them in it, or the choreographer doesn't. So being there and being emotionally open, but yet
Mhm.
void, right? I can't go into the studio and show everything on my sleeve. At the same time, I need to be able to be in my office in case somebody has a problem, right? So
Yeah.
I do struggle with that because I wear my face on my sleeve, which I'm sure you've noticed before. But I had to tell myself sometimes, hey, don't move your face. They're going through something and they might need you. So you can go downstairs, they can find you. Staff-wise, same thing. In a different capacity. It's what is someone lacking and what they excel in? Because I'm never the smartest person in the room. I know that. But if I can have the ability to guide someone in the places where they're deficient, and they're able to learn from them in ways they're better than me, the whole company rises, and that's giving everybody, and I do dislike the word agency, but to give everyone agency to do their work is actually really important. Like how our marketing is taking it's in a different space than it was 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, to give that person a little bit of rope and to get out there and try some new things. And, it's not throwing spaghetti at the wall, but it's analytical and trying to find things. And I think that's amazingly important. Board wise, it's uniquely political sometimes in a way. A board should never be surprised. They have to know what's coming around
Mm.
the corner. And if you have to make a very rough, tough decision, they should know beforehand. Because those rough and tough decisions, you can bounce it off these people. Like I said, you're never the smartest person in the room. They might have a better idea, right? But if you see a problem coming down the road, if you see a super tough decision, they should know beforehand. So that way you can kind of band together and come out with the best possible scenario.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like, maybe I'm reading into it, but you take a lot of stock in trust and respect, which I think goes 1,000 miles for anybody in any industry, but especially in your position. You're trusting the dancers, you're respecting them enough to give them space when they need, maybe come in when you need to. But I imagine it's tough to balance that empathy because you were just there. A blink of an eye ago, you were right where they are. But then you have to have professional expectations. You have to have a standard. Um, so I think one thing that I've noticed being on the other side of things now as a teacher is there are lots of things I didn't pick up on when I was dancing. Lots of things I didn't realize were happening at the front of the room. And I wonder for you, in your role now as artistic director and executive director, are there things that you wish you had known as a dancer that are going on, maybe behind the scenes, maybe at the front
Oh,
of the room,
yes.
that
I
you're
got
like, oh man, I would give $1 million to know that 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of went back to like my eyes were opened when I had that second company position, and they were just bringing me to meetings that I was just unbelievably unaware of. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. I was unaware of what I didn't know. Right.
You
And
don't know till you don't.
yeah, so it was quite amazing. And yes, like if you could be a fly on the wall and realize you had to do this one part that you really didn't like, but that was the gateway into the better parts you did, right?
Yeah.
You feel like somebody's abusing you at the moment. You don't just, but it's actually the time that you needed to go through this grunt work in order to be able to do this other thing. I wish I would have done that. Absolutely. I didn't look through it in that view. I mean, you're supposed to worry about yourself a little bit when you're dancing because after that, you worry about everyone else.
Yeah. I think I think that's been my biggest takeaway is that for me at least, I'm not going to speak for all dancers, but I was very self-centered. And I think in some ways you have to be, but you especially with casting, you don't realize all the things that are going on behind the scenes that make it so that you have to do this role on a Sunday matinee the second
Yeah.
week. You're like, well, so yeah, I totally agree. Um,
Yeah.
Man, that's really, yeah, really insightful. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about audition season because we got a lot of questions about auditions, and you're somebody that's going to a lot of auditions, seeing a lot of people audition. Um, and so I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on things. The first question is during an audition, and this is a popular question, something that we all think about. During an audition, would you rather a dancer take a class step by step, detail by detail, exactly as the teacher's giving it? Or would you rather have a dancer bring in their own artistic flair to the class? And I know it's circumstantial and dancer to dancer, but in your opinion, what do you hope to see from the front of the room?
Okay, this is just me and everyone listening. Really remember this forever. Each combination is inside of a box, and there are rules in that box. But what you stick in that box that don't affect the rules show what artist you are. If they give it 5, 6, 7, 8, and get the 8 and but maybe you can give a little bit of on the 1, but you're still
Yeah.
up on 2. I really look for that. I'm so drawn to people that can go inside of the rules in their own way. I immediately cannot stop watching them.
Right. Yeah.
I think we
Yeah,
lost.
just that little bit of stretch, that little bit of extra zhuzh on top.
Yeah, it just,
Oh no, did we lose
in
each
like
other?
you can land a double tour 1,000 different ways. You can straighten your knees, you can stay down there, you can accent it with a chin up. But hey, we asked for a double tour. You get to show you, right? We only gave X amount of counts of fouettes, but what you do in between that, that's on you. When you pull in is on you. Like I think playing with the music inside of the rules is an amazing thing.
Yeah. Do you personally, do you have any audition do's and don'ts, like things that you absolutely think, okay, dancers have to wear their tights in their leotards, they have to have their hair up, or they can never, wear this kind of thing or do this in a combination, stand in a certain place. Do you have anything like that when you're going to an audition?
Don't wear your warm-ups the whole time. We need to see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we need to see that you care. Because I mean, if I was going for a job personally, I think you would want to know exactly what my proficiency and deficiencies are, right? Just because you're not great at something doesn't mean you're not going to be, right? But if we can't see that, then we don't know. Don't change port de bras and épaulement. That's my don't. When you're giving that class, you're looking to see if you can fit inside of this nucleus of a company that is Sacramento Ballet or whatever ballet company is out there, right?
Yeah.
And we're giving, I'll say we as artistic staff, we're giving this specific épaulement port de bras on purpose to see that, hey, you're with us, right? I can see you dancing with X, Y, Z, who I know extremely very well in our company. I just stick to it. Right now, inside the boundaries, right? As we said, there's artistry, there's this and that, but don't change the épaulement port de bras. I wouldn't say that's going to go very well for you.
No, I agree. I think it goes along to the same point you were making before, where there's room for expansion, there's room for your own artistic presence, but you got to stay in that box. As far as video submissions, we get a ton of video submissions, especially post-COVID. The whole atmosphere, the whole landscape has changed around auditions. I think for the second company alone last year, we got over 500 video submissions, which is
Yeah.
great. It's incredible. For you, just for dancers out there that are making these videos now, sending them out to companies, what makes a good video submission, or what are things that you would stray away from?
We don't need to see your full bar. We don't. We do need to see your adagio for sure. You know, I would like to see something fast, right? And I see your grandmama. I'd like to see a full center actually. And I would like to see both sides, believe it or not. I think some just take this with a grain of salt because I think some directors are different. But
Yeah.
I mean, how versatile is a person that can do right and left, and what can you do with them? It's a dual paintbrush at that point when you're creating a beautiful picture. Besides that, you need partnering. People always forget that. Your contemporary and your classical, right? Just the way it is in America, or just across the world. I mean, we now have to do it all. There isn't a spot in any company right now where You just get to be that one person that does that one thing. I believe that probably died about a decade ago.
Yeah.
Even in the largest of large companies, people have to do everything now, and that's what it is. So we need to see those three things. So that way, because we talk about it a lot, even if you're not great at it, we're not hiring you for who you are. We're hiring you for who you can be. When you're looking at weighing everything, let's say you're weighing everything through a 1 through 10, you have a couple fives and a couple threes in there. Well, that three can turn into an eight and that five can turn into 10. It just gives a few years, you know?
Yeah. So, okay, to that point, when you are looking at hiring dancers, are you keeping your eye out for a dancer that has a ton of growth potential, maybe a little rough around the edges? Or would someone be more attractive if they are, let's say, a seasoned dancer, that, you know what you're going to get from them, but there might not be as much growth potential there?
Oh, that depends by year, right? I mean, how many people are retiring, what the company looks like, it's all of the above. I know that's a non-answer, but if you really have a hole there and you need a matriarch, right? We're going to go for someone that we know is going to deliver. We know has artistic ability. We know, hey, maybe they don't have growth potential, but they have artistic, emotional potential. You need that person. But I am drawn to diamonds in the rough, and I know that about myself. It's not that I think we can fix everyone. I think that everyone has the potential to be better than they are at this moment. And I think that there are some people that maybe they just didn't hear it the right way the first time, or maybe we have to say it three different ways. Yeah, when you say growth potential, I'm definitely drawn to that because it's the coolest thing as a director to see. Um, I'll say it out loud. Michelle Kacher, what I've seen happen over 4 years, to go from the back right side corner doing balances to doing first cast of things has just been an unbelievably wild ride for me. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
I it's like I live off that, right? There are good days and there are bad days, and there are sometimes more bad days than good days. But when you go into rehearsal and you see that, the bad days don't matter anymore, do they? It's amazing. Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, I think, from an outsider, adjacent to the company here, I think something I've noticed about the dancers here that I really respect, and I think a lot of it comes from how you've hired and how you've brought dancers in, is that everyone has an eagerness to improve.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of times, especially young dancers, get this idea that once they get a job, it's over. Your improvement, you're challenging yourself, you're pushing yourself kind of stops and you just coast. And I think that is something that is completely false. And so here, I love that the dancers are always willing to learn something new, to try something new, to push themselves, um, which I think is important, even if, you have a dancer that you might not see that potential in. If they're eager to learn, then, they could surprise you.
Yeah. We've definitely had a few surprises so far. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so switching gears back to the auditions, just one little quick question, kind of along the same lines as the video submission. We get a lot of questions about resumes, and we've done workshops with our second company here where they're doing resume building, cover letter building, which is great. Do you have any advice for resumes because you see hundreds of them every year?
Hmm. Simple and easy to read. Make sure your face is on it. Let's
Yes.
just say we're in a room, the 300 people are there, and I remember this one person, but I can't remember their name. I'm going to remember their face, and I'm going to go through that pile, lick my fingers, find that face, and pull it out. And I think that's the most amazing thing people have done. Quick, easy to read. Put your headshot on there, upper left-hand corner. It just helps us so fast to find these things, the piles that we put out and things like that. But I would say, um, do not do 10-point font ever. It becomes
Mm.
way too hard to read after the 50th resume. You need, you 12-point font, make it simple. That way you can make it through and make sure we read all the important things that you did.
Yeah, I agree. I think I feel the same way. And if it can be one page, I don't know if you feel the same way, but one
Yeah.
page is great. Don't give me
One
two.
page, simple to read. This is what I did. This is me. You've already know my techniques. You saw me dance. Great.
Yes. So we've talked a lot about the hiring process and bringing in dancers and auditions. And I just wanted to ask you if there's anything that you want young dancers out there to know about the hiring process from someone in your position, or something that you want them to take away from this conversation that they might not know, that might give them some reassurance, might give them some confidence going into these auditions, but just a little insight into the hiring process for them.
Um, I always begin every audition saying that you should dance the way you can dance. Don't dance the way you normally don't. Don't try to raise your leg higher in a way that's not going to have the technique that you have. Don't
Mm.
try to do the extra two pirouettes that you normally don't do. We want to see the real you who takes class that way so we know who you can be, right? I think that's amazingly important because, like we said, we're looking to see who these people, these dancers, these artists will be in 15 years, right? And everybody has a different growth trajectory, right? But if you can see that within inside the realm of how you take class, because if you do go for those extra two pirouettes, it may work out or you might fall over, right? And if you fall over,
Yeah.
you know, so stay with us in the realm of your own technique, right? Um, honestly, you can laugh at yourself, keep it light. We actually, I don't know how many other companies do this, but we actually do an extra Zoom meeting with everyone. Um, I just want to see what kind of humans they are, what kind of humans these people are. I mean, inviting someone into your family is a big deal. So being open, honest, and respectful is really important because what a director is doing is inviting you into this group. And this group is a well-run oiled machine that gets along.
Yeah.
Then you need to fit into that, and I think that's one of the I do believe that's one of the things that are becoming way more important in dancing. It used to be crawl your way to the top, and maybe some places are still like that, but homogeneously, it's about how we work together cohesively and become better. I think that's important. Stick to what you can do. That way they can see who you can be and let yourself open, honest, respectful, and stay that way. I think that's one of the most important things. And you go farther in your career because people will always be behind you. They will always be cheering for you. They will always be on the side of the stage. And the first time you get your solo.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I wanted to ask you because there was something that was brought to me from a friend who's in a similar position as me, and we were talking about auditions, and he was saying how it's funny how everyone at the front of the room, at the front of the audition, is rooting for the people auditioning.
Yes.
You want to see the greatest dancers you've ever seen. You want them to be so good. And I think that gets lost as a dancer. You think that they're, trying to be critical, and which they are, but I think, I don't know if you feel this way, but I think it's comforting for a dancer to know that as someone at the front of the room, we're your biggest cheerleader when you walk in there. We want you to be so good. We want everyone to be so good.
Yes, on your last day as a dancer, I want you to close your eyes and think about every single thing that we helped you with, that you helped us with emotionally, and that you are the best possible dancer you can be because we cared. I mean, I think that's reaching Everest. It's walking through Elysium Fields. It's reaching Valhalla. It's all the things. We want the best for you, and we want to take that through your whole career. So that way, when you're finished, you were happy you were here with us. Because at the
Yeah.
end, I know I said this before to you, Rhodes, in a different conversation. You got videos, memories, and photos. in the end. So having that extra component of knowing that everyone cared and helped you get to where you got to, I think that's the cream on top.
Totally. Yeah, I think that leads perfectly into my last question for you, which is just what do you think attributes to longevity in this career? And I don't
Oh,
mean that necessarily just for dancers, but going on into directorship, leadership roles, even, other sides of the business, the marketing, development. What do you think? Well, for you, because you've been around for a couple years, what do you think keeps you motivated, keeps your passion alive, keeps the drive alive? What do you think that secret ingredient is?
I'll try to answer them in succession, I think.
Okay.
Um, Longevity, be honest. Don't sit there with your ankle hurting for 15 days until it becomes a micro injury that becomes an injury that no one was aware of, right? If we're aware of it, we can help you. Parts are important. People are more important. One day we're all going to be 80 and we're all going to have to walk well, right? And all those micro injuries will build up. These things are happening. Be honest. Because like I said, I think the dance world has changed. We want to help you. We want to help you get better. We want to help you find better care. We want to do all those things. I think that's one of the most, I get frustrated when people don't do that. And I'm not angry. Angry is different. Anger is different than frustration. And I get frustrated that I had the inability to help, right? Or the inability to, or like how I get frustrated with myself, thinking like, what did I not say to let them know that they can trust me with these little injuries? And I question myself about that a lot, more often than not. Um, and I think those are one of the things for longevity wise. Absolutely. And there's always listening to true technique, not forcing things, listen to how
Yeah.
you do things correctly. That way, the wear and tear goes down. Um, as far as getting into the other part, um, I don't think I ever, in the two places that I danced, no, only two, I don't think I ever didn't have a friend on the staff, you know, always talking to everyone. And it's a part of it was curiosity. We know dance so well,
Hmm.
I mean, you might as well say at the end of your career, you got a PhD in dance, right? Um, but I, but their jobs are so, aren't they interesting? It's like, I want to know what these four people in marketing are doing, and I want to know how to like development. How do they find these people? And then what are your rules for? And I think actually getting to know the staff is uniquely important because if you're going to be one, you're going to have to understand where it's at. You're going to understand what
Yeah.
people do. And there's whole departments that you have to understand that coincide in this one beautiful thing. Because sometimes as dancers, you think like, well, there's no company without us. I gotta tell you from the other side, it goes both ways. There's no company about the staff either because where do your paychecks come from? And not from
Yeah.
shows. That's only a portion because we can't charge any more money for our tickets. Um, I really do think getting to know the staff is really important to have all an umbrellaed idea of how a company runs is so important. And also at the same time, it helps you develop a different way of conversing with people. As dancers, we have our own speak, we have our own analogies, we have our own acronyms, we have our, no, it's a different world. It's a different world with a different way of thinking. It's a bit more analytical, but not in a non-artsy way, but just things come down in a very finite fashion. This
Yeah.
works this way, and we know that radio is tailoring off at this point, so we're going to have to tailor it up. We have to find a new media to go through, things like that, and to be aware of that, I think is so important. Um, I also think getting to know your general manager, it could be an operations manager, um, is very important. Also, they are the string of everything internally, right? 80s and EDs have to deal with internal and a lot of external, right? Journal managers they have to hold this whole place together. Um, those are like Marvel movies. It's like a Spider-Man with two webs pulling the sides together.
Yeah.
That's That's the general manager at all times. Operations daily in and out and answering things even if they don't know how, but they will figure it out.
Putting out fires.
Yes. Well, because when you see that as a dancer, you start thinking differently. And you're going to be able to see how a staff works and how it has to be harmonious. I mean, there's always going to be squabbling, but it does have to, everything has to come together. You know, high tide raises all ships. It has to happen on all sides. And when you get to see that, I think that helps you get into the other side. And those who want to be rehearsal directors and you're getting older, start helping those younger dancers because you're going to know you have to think inside your own body to help them. It's going to make you a better rehearsal director by helping them on your lunch break, helping them after class. It's also going to help you make that switch that it's not about you anymore.
Yeah.
It switches in your head. All of a sudden, you don't care what your show was. You care that this person that you've been helping for so long does really well in their first pas de trois. You know, and I think that's really important to get out there and help people. You know, some people may not want your help, so you definitely have to do that. But others, I think that's I'm guarantee will be welcomed by many, and that will help you become kind of a leader in a way that people can look up to and trust.
Yeah. I mean, that's really well said. I think that's spot on. It's that perspective change. It's that getting insights into the other aspects of the company to, like you said, shift it from the singular focus of yourself. Um, but helping those younger dancers, that's what we do here at Creative Generations. Um, and man, thank you so much. I don't I don't have any more words. That was great. Um,
Thanks, Rose. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, Anthony. Man, you know what I really appreciate about you, and this has been true since we met over 20 years ago. Um, you've always been really authentic and real, and you don't seem to play those games and speak, out of both sides of your mouth, and that's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to get through all of the politics and navigate your way and
Tired
be
me.
authentic. Yeah. I mean, do you have any tips for how to do that? Because it's been quite the journey for me.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so okay, I need to ask these questions for the younger dancers to prioritize those. Because this comes from them, and these are the things that come up. Do you do your best to prioritize second company members being promoted into the company, or is it not as important or valuable to you? Does it make a difference, essentially, if they're in your second company, or are you just going to take the
I'll
best
answer this. I'll
available?
answer this. No, no, it's just I have a dream that, and I don't know if it's a pipe dream, but I believe in it. I believe that our school can go into the second company, the second company go into the company. The second company, the company is working, right? It's working. And some of the school getting the second company. Um, Prioritize, I don't know if that's fair. I think if we put our blood, sweat, and tears and all the love we have into the second company, they can rise to take those jobs.
Hmm.
I believe they can because you've already got the ep.1 porter bra to match everyone else. You've already been coached to look like them in a very specific way, how you move, and if that happens and you have that ability, you're going to get the job. It is what it is because I'm going to look at you in a room full of all these dancers that we've invited here to audition, and you're going to shine.
Yeah.
Right now, there are going to be people that audition that I am going to hire from the externally. It just is what it is, and I am drawn to them artistically. But I mean, when you put in the most simplest terms, when you have the ability to be here and you've been coached in a very specific way, and I got to tell you, Rhodes and Elise have the very, I'm sure you've noticed, very similar Apamon Porter bra is me.
Yeah.
Like, wow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Jill, the same way.
Yeah.
We're all moving in the same direction. Yeah, you're probably going to get hired because you're already 95% there. You know,
Yeah.
makes
Because it's
sense?
all connected. Your
Oh,
company's connected,
yeah,
because some places the second company is not really connected to the first company. So you're
yeah,
not getting the training necessarily to get there. So
yeah,
what you're saying is that your hope is to provide that training. And I think you are. I think you're
yeah.
doing a great job. And the communication back and forth from what I've seen has been amazing. Um, it's just there's so many things that you're doing that I've never seen. And some of it, I wonder, is it just you, or do you think it's the generation, or a shift in the culture? Oh,
uh, don't, oh, how do I explain this? If you ever had the momentum for something and it doesn't matter what the rest of the dance world thinks, or you've had an idea that's so important to you that everything else is white noise. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm saying it
yeah,
correctly.
yeah, creative generations. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, yeah, exactly. You're going to this place and you know what's right. And it's not that the formalized plan came out of the want for more, right? It's like I knew where it was, but to get it down in words took time. Does that make sense to you? It's
yeah,
like how I felt sometimes in my career, and no names. I mean, where you would question yourself as an artist because of what someone said or how you're being treated in the moment, or like, I don't want that for anybody. Like, Derek, we went through it so they don't have to.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
those things, and I believe in that. So I try to drive myself away from the actions, that the external actions that affected me. So if I
yeah,
can devoid myself of those things, I believe it takes us in the correct place.
yeah. And I mean, it shows. It shows. It firsthand, I can just say it shows. And um, I've never heard so many of these young dancers like really have this much respect and trust that you're going to do what you say that you're going to do, and the way that you guys hold your dancers. And I think it shows up in their dancing on stage, and it shows up in their lives.
So I'm
So
proud of
that's
them.
huge, right?
They're
Yeah.
they're
And
doing all right.
well, I mean, I'm really glad that you are a person of your word, because cycles tend to continue, right? So the way that maybe our generation was treated as dancers, that can continue. That's a tendency.
Yeah.
And with these ideas, the way you're speaking, the way you lead, it's different. It's healthy. I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's
So you have a vision. Can you tell me, like, what is that vision? I mean, I know it's probably hard to articulate exactly, but what is this vision that like keeps you like really guided?
hmm. Um, I'll have to break that in parts, right? No, no,
Or
because I
maybe
mean,
just, a
I
core
love
part.
well, I love the word vision because some people immediately go just to repertoire, or
Yeah,
like the vision is
yeah,
repertoire, um, which it is. I mean, it has to be, otherwise you would never get hired.
yeah,
But I care more. Oh man, it's so hard to put this into words.
yeah,
I argue with other people over casting, and which is great. You're supposed to, right? But I want to prioritize not only what the best show is in that moment, but I believe the best shows have the best artists. And how do you create the best artists? Is sometimes our second cast is not the role we're supposed to be doing. It's the role that is going to challenge us. It's the role we have to get deep into. We got to get our hands dirty, and we got to make that person feel like $1 million in their second cast, right? But and I believe that's putting the artist before the show, because the show's not good without the artist. Like it's just, and the thing is, if we do that repeatedly, how good can they be? And then like we talk about vision, like you don't even have to have, at that point, it's just like you've helped so many people be the best they possibly can be. And of course, you're fallible too. You probably screwed up somewhere in there too, right? You know,
Of course, of course. You're
but
human.
help them to your best ability to become the best dancer they can be. That is the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like I
Yeah.
just think, because the dancers make the best show. I've seen pieces that I knew were mediocre that I loved because the art were awesome.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
know, and I won't say that out loud who they were, but I think that's one of the biggest things vision-wise for companies, is knowing that we can't just easily cast like a movie. We need to make a multifaceted dancer so that they can be cast multiple ways. Rep wise, I don't want to be insert big name company light.
Yeah.
We don't need to do the rep 10 to 15 years later. Which it's sometimes we will. I mean, you know, but I think being a part of the process is so cool. I also think finding voices from across the world is unbelievably important. You know, for a while there, Europe was doing its own thing. Asia, even Southeast Asia, were different,
Yeah.
right? And North America had its own feel, and South America had its own feel. And but the coolest part now is starting to come together.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can get these influences from different continents, different countries. I think in creating pieces here, or not even here, let's just not a destination, creating pieces with the choreographers is so important. Because I don't remember how many times, let's say like we're learning this piece and they'll be like, all right, this time you're Derek. So whenever we say Derek, you're Derek, and you have to dance like Derek. Now you were a great dancer, right? But maybe I want my own flavor, you know, like I
Right,
want
right.
memory, you know.
Wait, what about it? Who am I? Right?
But you
Just trying to
know,
build.
like,
Yeah.
you know, that's one of the things that I really care about. I had been doing like kind of gateway contemporary pieces to get
Mhm.
to where we're at now, right? And I layered
Uh,
them.
yeah.
But now that they're layered, we can be a part of it. We can be a part of that amazing piece. We can be the company that helped create this great piece. And of course, you're going to sprinkle in things that have been done everywhere else. I mean, you have to. There's just wonderful pieces out there in the world. But for me, I think defining yourself as a creative unit is really important. And it's not about me creating, it's not about what the company, you know, it's people you bring in, right? To help make this humongous thing. But you ball that all that artistic energy up, and how many wonderful choreographers think you'd make? I mean, if you were a part of every process and you got to see, you know, let's say you get to see 40 different contemporary works made on you
Yeah.
with different styles and different energy and different. I mean, the thing is, you don't steal from choreographers, but you gain influence. But the more influence we give, it's just a little bit more spice, you know? And
Yeah.
it's a vision that I believe in. I believe that's an amazing career to have for these artists. It's also an amazing education for our city, you know, because the city can only know what we give them. They're not going to go out and search on their own for these things. So that the most that we can give them is the most they're going to take in. Of course, we have outreach, things like that. I'm just talking about the normal audience member who buys a ticket.
Right. Right.
That's the most education we can give, you know, just in order for them to know what our art form is really doing. You can't blind them from the art form, you know, and I think some people do that. Like, this is the best thing there is. And this thing you're watching, everyone, and it's great for a curtain speech. But is your audience aware of what's happening around the world? No, we gotta show them all of it, and they can have their own opinion. We don't even tell them, they're gonna have an opinion and they're gonna want to see more of something, and I know I'm rambling, Derek, but
No, you're not. You're talking about something that we don't talk about enough, and the actual point of why, well, like what we're doing, the deeper work.
yeah,
Like
you can't dance in a
it's
void.
not superficial. No, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, you're doing
Yeah.
such a spectacular job. I've never seen anyone do this with a ballet company. So I really hope the city and all your dancers are appreciating what you're bringing. Um, I mean, that's just objective. Like, I'm not trying to plug you
No, no,
because
no, I get, yeah,
I don't need to. I don't need to because, but I hope they appreciate you. And is there anything like how can they support you if they're listening to this, supporting Sacramento Ballet and engage with Sacramento Ballet and be more involved instead of just, I mean, of course, buying tickets and going to the shows, but how can they engage with Sacramento Ballet? Because you're doing something special.
yeah. Always volunteer. The thing,
Yeah.
when you volunteer, you learn. And you get to meet the artist, which is awesome. And you get to see the ins and outs of how this runs, which most people do not understand, right? You're
Yeah.
also going to find your most favorite dancer slash artist, and you're going to get down forwards and backwards. You're also going to see where the company needs something. I do believe, like I said, we're not the smartest people in the room, but when you're so close to it, sometimes it's hard to see a hole because you're in the cavern, right? I think volunteers sometimes point out things that are glaringly obvious to them that the rest of us are just like, oh,
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Oh,
right.
we're
That
so
would
busy
be
looking at
great.
the feet,
Yes,
the
yeah,
rest of the dancer.
yeah. But like, oh yeah, we just do it this way, and it works, and like we're doing,
Yeah.
but they're like, wouldn't it
Yeah.
be more efficient to do this? I appreciate you. Thank you. Like but it's really true.
Perspective.
And
Yeah.
sometimes you need somebody who doesn't have a dance background to see it.
Yeah.
Because like, we're making different systems, which we've been talking about, but there's certain allocations of systems that we grew up in that we've kept, right?
Yeah.
How the schools run, how we do.
Hmm.
But no, they're like, wouldn't it be more? Yeah, just, oh my gosh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, personally for us and other companies have it too, we have a lot of open rehearsals,
Mm,
a lot of events,
that's great.
and we speak to them, speak to the audience
Yeah.
first, explain kind of what they're seeing. Most of the time I talk about why I picked this work and what it means to us as a community and for the dancers. And I think that's important. They know.
Open rehearsals is where
Yeah.
people are invited to watch the
Yes.
process, right?
Yes, exactly. And so I think those are, oh my gosh, they're so, it's just in a way to engage and understand in a way it's so tangible and quick,
Yeah.
because if you haven't been to a rehearsal, they always are, people are dumbfounded when okay, they did the part where they ran it and then they're moving on and we're going to cover 2 minutes of choreography in such a short amount of time. And they say, how do they remember all that? And they're like, well, that's what we
Right.
do,
Yeah.
like, uh,
Yeah.
a dealer at the casino is really good at dealing.
Hmm.
They're fast in a
That's a
way
good
that I'll
comparison.
never be. It's like, this is what we do, and this is how we learn. And some of us we learn through hearing, some of us learn through action, eyes. But it's how we tune ourselves in. And talking about that's amazing, and it brings you as a community even closer to us.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about that thematic connection and being close and heart to heart and just like feeling the person while being able to see the performer. That's
Yeah.
rare because usually it's just behind that. But yeah, I know you don't have any more time, but hearing you talk and what you're doing and what I've seen, I'm inspired. and I'm a cynical, retired ballet dancer, and I'm inspired. So that that says a lot, so thank you.
Hey,
Really.
it's all reciprocated. You're changing this thing too, and I'm glad we're working together. That's
Me too.
amazingly important. It's hard to do things alone, but as a front, we can do a lot of great things, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you, Anthony.
Yeah,
You're
man.
great. All right. We'll talk soon. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go watch Juliet get poisoned.
All right. Have a good rehearsal.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Anthony.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Creative Generations podcast. Again, what a great conversation with Anthony Krutzkamp, the artistic and executive director of the Sacramento Ballet. Hopefully that's the first of many conversations we're going to have with artistic directors in the coming weeks. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel and Instagram. Please visit creativegenerations-dance.com. And also please visit sacballet.org.